Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored with Steve Taplin.
Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored, where tech leaders drop the filters and just tell it like it is. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, a serial technology entrepreneur who's launched 30 companies throughout my career, failed at 20 of those, but scaled 10 of those to success. And I turned that roller coaster of a ride into my book. It's called Fail Hard, Win Big. And this is where I teach people how you turn failure into your biggest competitive advantage and how custom software played a defining role in every win. Now I'm the CEO of Sonatify Technology. We are a nearshore software engineering company with engineers both in the US and Latin America. We help existing engineering teams scale. And today I am joined by Christine, who is a guy who was an engineer turned fintech exec to founder, multi-time CTO, and now the CEO and founder at Treasury Prime. Trust me, you're going to want to hear this one. Chris, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here. Appreciate it.
You bet. Chris, if you would, take a few minutes, walk our listeners through the journey of your career.
Sure. So I had always intended to live an academic life, be a professor at some mid-tier college. I was working at JPL right before going to grad school, NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, doing machine learning stuff. I really enjoyed that. And then my life was thrown for a loop. We moved to San Francisco and I needed a job for at least a year so we wouldn't starve. So I got my first regular job and it was at a startup. I was the first employee there. I literally did not know what the word startup meant. I did not know that word, but they said they would pay for the move and the salary was, from my perspective, amazing. It wasn't until I was there a couple of years when I learned I made half of what everybody else made. But there you go. That startup failed pretty dramatically. There was all the things that you always hear about, like the drama, the founders hating each other and, people doing things they shouldn't be doing in my server room. It was just terrible. And that should have said, go back to academic, buddy, go to grad school, finish your doctorate, do all that stuff. But I had the opposite reaction. I said, oh no, this is it. This is the thing. I love this stuff because it actually lets me build things and test if they're good. Because if they aren't good, no one's going to use them. If they are good, everyone's going to use them. So I went through that journey. I did another startup just as an employee. And since then I've been founder, co-founder, whatever, of multiple startups. Usually I'm the technical person. I guess I'm always a technical person. My ego doesn't really demand that I be the CEO, but for this one, which I'm doing Treasury Prime right now, which is a Fintech startup, I was, kind of pushed into the role because there's no one else to do it, basically. And I'm happy to do it. I don't mind doing it, but it's usually other people really, really, really want it.
You don't hear many stories, Chris, of somebody who thought academia was going to be in their career and out of necessity started in a startup that failed. And you said, this is for me. I love it.
It's so good. And I know, I said, I should go get an MBA. So I went and talked to my buddies and they're like, don't get an MBA if you want to do startups. If you want to do something else, get an MBA. MBA is great, but you don't need that for what you want to do. So I did the whole, self-education thing where I spent 3 or 4 years, talking to everyone who was, I thought, good at the job and asking them how they did it and took lessons from that and tried them. Some of them worked for me. Some of them did not work for me. And at some point I said, you just got to do it. And I found it. This is a long time ago. So it's like the .com days. And I was working at a startup that got bought by another big .com. And on paper, I was worth $1 zillion. But over the next year, that stock went to zero. And,
Nice.
so the only money I made was the retention was on stock was the friends and family shares that you get. It's a thing in IPO. Often they'll say you can buy 1,000 shares if you want right now and you can do whatever you want as a special deal. So I bought 1,000 shares at $20. We sold it. I sold it that same day at $80. So it would pop. And I made that money in stock. That's good. That's not millions of dollars. That's, tens of thousands of dollars. But that was all the money I ever made from that company. I was like, okay, this is a good lesson. Like you should do it because you like it, not because it's going to be like the golden ticket.
Chris, I wrote a whole book on, and I had hesitation of writing this book. Do I really want to say I've failed at 20 companies? One of my buddies is a retired Major League Baseball player who has 3 World Series rings. And he said to me, Taplin, are you crazy? If you were a baseball player, that's a 333 lifetime average. You're Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
And one of the defining things about me of people who knew me was I could fail at a business and just shake it off and move to the next. And unfortunately, you learn more from your failures than you do successes. When you have success, you often get cocky. There's always some luck involved, but you get cocky and you don't examine things as much as when you fail.
Yeah, 100%. Like people talk about why historically Silicon Valley has been so successful, and I think it's not as important as it was a decade or two ago. And they talk about access to capital and Stanford and Berkeley are right here and all that stuff, right? And like early days of chip manufacturing. I always think they miss the soft things, which is like, it's okay to fail in San Francisco. It's okay. Like, it's just something that happens. It happens to everyone. So after a while, you're like, yeah, whatever. Let's go. And the amount of cooperation you can get as you fail and as you is great, because then you remember that when you're succeeding. Like we're doing really great right now. But I remember when, I haven't been doing great. So when people reach out, I'm helpful to them like they were helpful to me. And I think I've always thought that's one of the keys of why Silicon Valley or, startups have really worked. It's because of that. Like, there's no reason to be selfish. I can give you 15 minutes. What's going to cost me,
Exactly. Now, Treasury Prime, you founded, you're the CEO of this company. It's been a little over 8 years. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So I was retired and I did not like retirement. I did not care for it. I was like building data centers in my garage for absolutely no reason. And my buddy called me and said, will you help with my startup? Because we're struggling with the product and engineering side. And you know about that. I'm like, no, because I'm retired. But he sold me in the room and I'm like, okay, what do you do again? He's like, banking. I'm like, dude, I don't know anything about banking. I had the same bank account since I was in college. Come on. And like my investment strategy is I got a guy at Fidelity and like, that's it. And I guess startups, and he's like, that's okay. You know how to make computers work. I know how to get banks to do stuff. Well, let's go. And so we sold that company to Silicon Valley Bank. And I'm like, great. I'm out back to the ranch. And I loved it. Working at Silicon Valley Bank. It was crazy. The people were so nice. And I discovered like looking inside how bank works, the US bank works. It is A, wonderful and one of the best design systems in the world, and also B, kind of a disaster at the same time. If you think about it, like from our kind of world, it is like a computer system, which the macro of it is fantastic. It's distributed, it's fault tolerant, it has all sorts of checks and balances in there to make sure something goes wrong, it gets fixed. But if you look at the details, the code's a rat's nest, right? It's terrible. And at that point, I'm like, shoot, I can fix this. This is a problem I understand how to fix. So that's the whole Treasury Prime point, is we're trying to make a system so that banks and tech companies can talk to each other in a way that both are comfortable with. And I have the unique position that I'm like the world's biggest nerd. So like the tech people, those are my people. But I also spent a couple, 3-4 years at working with bankers. And so I kind of understand what their motivations are. And they're very different. Culturally, they're very different.
Yes.
And that's the Treasury Prime thing. At the basis of it, we make an API so you can open bank accounts to do stuff with it. That's the basis.
Okay, excellent. So you actually came out of retirement. I have a funny story there too. I had a nice exit a week before my 30th birthday on one of my companies. And in most people's terms, I probably had enough money to live for the rest of my life. And my kids were young. They weren't in school yet. And my wife and kids, we left on an 8-month vacation with no plan. And about a month and a half in, I was ready to blow my head off. I couldn't take another pool or pina colada. I don't golf. And my wife turned to me and I was like, honey, I love you, but your mind needs to be solving challenges. This isn't for you. And I learned that, that I could never retire. And when you talk to a lot of retired people, unless you have hundreds of millions of dollars and you're just sitting on some boards to keep some stimulation, most retired people are their minds aren't stimulated and they seem to go down quicker than if you were still in the game.
Like that was my thing. Like I realized I always need a project, and I either can I can do a project which no one cares about, or I can do a project that will, be good in the world. And so which it's up to me to pick, because I'm going to do a project regardless. And so I picked the one that'll be doing good in the world. And like Treasury Prime's like, it's a commercial enterprise or venture backed, all that stuff. That's true. But the point of Treasury Prime is to like make the banking system better. And it's, mission driven on that. And if it's better for like rich people, it's better for poor people, it's better for everybody. And like, that's all I really want. And like the project's fun. If it's fun and important, of course I'm going to do it. Right. Of course.
Nice. So tell us about your software engineering team. How many engineers you have, where they're located, how you like to run your teams.
Pretty small teams where there's my view. I'll tell you this is always the controversial thing I always say. Like, I've read a lot of books on software development. I've managed lots of teams from like one person to 150 people. It's like I topped out around that. And I've tried lots of experiments. I've done all the stuff. The single best book I've ever read on software development management is The Marine Corps Warfighting Manual. It is by far like not even a question for me. Like it's like twice as good at least as the next one. And
the Marine Corps
War Fighting Manual. It's like if you take out the part where you're shooting at bad guys, because you don't want to shoot at anybody, but it's basically how do you manage the chaos in a hostile, ever-changing environment? And like the software that I develop is always in the startup world, right? Where it's constantly changing. We constantly have to push new features out.
You're never done.
You're never done.
You're always adding features.
You're never done. Like if you're not replacing huge portions of the code every 18 months, like I'm like, are you even doing it right?
Yes.
And the thing is, if you look at what actually works, or at least it's worked for me, it seems I fell down to there's two ways to do it. There's like the small elite team where everyone's a genius. They all get along. Basically, they all want to work on the same problem. And those teams are incredibly productive. Each person is like, one of the truly great programmer, but there's very little overhead because there's so few people, right? And that's where we are right now. There's about a dozen plus engineers. It's a pretty small group. The other way to go is to like have more what my friends always call the surgery, the surgery one, where there's a doctor, a surgeon, a couple of surgeons in charge, and then an army of support people. And then you get many, many more engineers. And I've tried that way. It's not my favorite way. There's a lot more infrastructure. You get a lot done, but it's different. I can't move as fast as I want to move because steering the ship is harder when there's 100 people versus 12 people. Right?
Now you're in your office in San Francisco right now. Is your engineering team, or what's the work model? Are you on site, hybrid, remote?
We're remote. We have people from all in North America, from Toronto to San Diego. I think those are the two edges. Maine, depending on, when the guy moves around. There's two people in San Francisco or Bay Area, one in San Francisco, one down in Palo Alto, and then everybody else is scattered throughout the U.S. It's funny. We used to have a lot more people in San Francisco, and slowly they leave because there's like, love this job, and I don't have to come in the office, so why don't I move to wherever, to San Diego or somewhere like that, because it's all remote. That works really well for us. I have a strong bias to North America only because I want everyone to be able to communicate quickly. That in theory, we could go down to South America, but we just never.
Gotcha. So you described yourself, I want to make sure to say this in your words, as a tech nerd. So are you still hands-on code?
Yeah, not a lot because I've got this whole other, gig I'm doing it all the time. But yeah, I do stuff all the time. I do a lot of cleanup, because I find that if I don't stay in the code at least once every 2 weeks, I start to lose the thread of like what's actually going on in the real world. So I'm the guy who's like, this file's too big. We're going to split it up. There's no unit test for this. I'm going to write it. That kind of thing. Over the summer, I wrote a real app just because I was on holiday and like, yeah, I'm that guy. And I wrote a real app. We shipped that. And so that was fun. But I don't know, it's like 5% of my time. And
Gotcha.
everyone else, it's 100% of their time, and they're all constantly working, and they're all animals, they're just crazy. I wouldn't be able to keep up, right? If I wanted to do this job too.
So, as a tech leader, as we're closing out 2025, what are some of the biggest challenges you're facing now?
So I was trained and came up, decades ago. I learned how to program. My first language was C, and some assembly, and I did all the stuff when I was doing the machine learning code, which I did a lot of for a long time, was all about performance and large systems. So C, C++, actually Fortran too, because back then at least Fortran was indeed faster. And if you care about that 5% improvement, which I did, we do that. And, that's morphed into, higher level languages, which I appreciate and like, and what's what we use. And there's a training for that about like quality of code and development styles. But the thing that's changed in the last 5 years is the AI stuff. It just has made it
Yes.
so it is a different job than when I learned how to do it. It's as much about managing the AI tools as it is about having a beautiful vision of what you're going to do and shipping that piece of code that you're very proud of. Like there's just a volume of code you can make with AI is much higher. And I would say at this point, I would have, maybe doubled the size of my team, but we've been very reluctant to hire because we're doing really well here and the AI tools make us much more productive, but it's very different. And I think the challenge is that it's uncomfortable. I mean, I'm uncomfortable in it, like to let the AI do stuff. It's like, I say this all the time. It's like having that intern. The AI is like having that intern who's like, they're eager, they're 20 years old. They come in, they no idea what they're doing. You got to teach them how to use version control. They don't know anything, right? And they're very eager and they're very smart. And you give them a job and they do great. You're like, amazing. Then you give them another job and it is a train wreck, right? It is like, you don't even, it's just complete nonsense. And that's how I feel about the AI stuff every day. Like sometimes it's just complete nonsense and you need very senior, smart people to guide it. That's the biggest challenge we see is like how we can do that and keep up with the productivity that we're all experiencing, these huge productivity wins while still maintaining the quality of the product, right? We don't want to let that slip.
So, dealing in fintech, dealing with the banks, security, compliance, regulations are a huge thing.
Yeah.
How has AI helped or hurt that?
I mean, generally it just helps. It's dangerous, it's like a sharp knife. You can cut yourself, but just don't. Just keep chopping the food. Um, yeah. One thing that's true is that people get really mad when you lose their money. Even if it's only $1, they still are really, really mad.
Sure.
And so don't do that. I mean, our whole development environment is designed so that's hard to do. It's hard to lose money and all the checks and balances throughout the system. We chose an unusual programming language. We all write like 90% of our code's written in Clojure, which is an immutable language. And partly it's immutable because that's the source of bugs that we didn't want to see. Right. And so that helps. AI tools basically still, they, the AI tools, if you let them go, would make a mistake. So we just don't let them go. Right. We use them for two things. One is to create new code, but that's reviewed by humans and everyone looks at it. And like it was reviewed by the person who asked the AI to do it. It's reviewed by the code review process. It's reviewed by all our testing we have. And so that generally has worked. We have a handful of cases where we use the AI in the product itself to do things, but they're never things which touch money at the moment. Or that's not true. They're never things which change money. They're only read only when it comes to touching money. Only read only. Only read only.
Gotcha. So in the banking world, legacy code, legacy debt is a huge thing. You still have mainframes running,
Yep.
core banking systems. They keep hanging on and the older code is reliable. However, at some point there needs to be refactoring. What's your view on this and how AI in a specific to banking can either help or hurt that, going once again with the fact that we know you just can't let it go on its own.
Yeah.
It needs to be
This is like
monitored.
very inside baseball. Like, so every bank runs on at least one core. The bigger banks, even like modest banks, run on multiple cores. A core is like the thing that says, here's your balance, here's your name, here's your transaction history. So it's the thing that knows that. It's a database kind of thing. some of the cores, like you said, are ancient. Like one of the ones we integrate with is written in the 80s, runs on a mainframe, and we use it, and it's no. And for us, we treat it the same as the one that was written like 15 years ago. I think that's the newest one we have that we integrate with. It is not feasible for most banks to change their core, not because they can't do it, but because it's a multi-million-dollar process. It requires many people. It's like this big IT project, which is usually not my world, right? And they do it. It takes them 2 years. And when you're done, you have pretty much exactly the same thing you had before from a customer's point of view. So it's almost impossible to like justify spending 2 years of your life when no one's going to notice except you.
Yeah.
And so banks don't do it. It's very rare. However, AI is changed. Is changing all that because you can, instead of taking 2 years, you can do it much, much quicker than you ever could. And I think these large companies, there's these huge software banking companies, FIS, Fiserv, Jack Henry, they're all these multi-billion-dollar companies. I think they're starting to wake up to the fact that they've been made money over the years by saying, buy my core software. I'll charge you $1 million a year for 7 years. In 7 years, I'll be back and I'll charge you $1.5 million a year. How about that? And that's worked for them for decades. And I think that's not working anymore because people are like, well, I'm just going to switch because the AI is going to help me switch. And that's different.
Lots of challenges to solve there.
Yeah.
So, Chris, you're a guy that's been coding a long time. You've been involved in AI since before it was cool or mainstream, when it was machine learning. And you look at MIT reports, every report that comes out, it's saying 95% of generative AI projects at companies are failing and leading to negative ROI. Why do you think that is?
They don't know what they're doing. I mean, it's a shorthand, right? It's like they're not they're treating it like a silver bullet. And you and I, like, we read that book. There's no silver bullet, right? You can't say at a very high level, do this thing and make it perfect and then walk away. It's a tool, right? And if you use it as a tool, it works. Like we've had huge successes internally in managing our software development, our go-to-market teams, which is like sales and marketing folks, internal operations by using AI. But every single time, the only thing that's ever worked is when it augments a human. When we say we have a great engineer, they're better than most engineers. They're producing great amount of code, high volume, high quality, all the good things. What if we could make them 50% more productive? It's not, we don't want to replace them. You can't replace them, but I can make them better and stronger. It's a lever. And I think the people that fail over and over again are the ones who say, well, I'm going to set it and forget it. I'm going to turn this on and it's just going to work. And I don't need all these people anymore. Like, that's BS. Like maybe there'll become a day when the AIs are running the world, but today is not that day. Today they're just faster, better.
Well, very well put. Very well put. Your company is headquartered in San Francisco. San Francisco has gone is hot again, and AI has helped revitalize the area. Investments in companies, but there's this young culture that started in Asia that's migrated to San Francisco, Silicon Valley, of the 996 culture of, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. 996 meaning working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. And the job ads for these companies basically say you're in office every day. Your pay is going to be subpar. You will get equity, and it's a short window. Me and you are both some guys that have a couple gray hairs that have been around the block. What's your view of this 996 culture and this FOMO, fear of missing out, of this AI wave?
Hey, I don't want to overstate it here, but how is that different? I mean, I always ask people this, like, so some of my best friends graduated college, and we went to the cool school, and they went to work in the gaming industry. This is like the 90s, right? They worked more than to build these initial games.
Okay.
When I did my first startup, I worked more than that because it was 6 days. I wish I could have done 6 days. I did 7 days, right? And That's normal. The thing that's harder is, I think, if you intend to do that for a large organization for extended periods of time, I don't know if that would work. I think what would happen, what might happen, and I don't have any evidence either way, what might happen is that you start to, your quality of your work starts to go down after the 6 months or a year because you're burnt out, right? Treasury Prime doesn't run like that. We have a, high performance culture for sure. We all rely on each other, but it's not like that. We, this banking especially is a marathon, not a sprint. And we treat it like that. When we have to work hard, we work hard. Right. But it's not every day. I mean, it's not every month, let's say.
It's as a guy who's had 30 companies,
Yeah.
as a serial entrepreneur, founder, and CEO, I'm sick in the head. I work like that because that's how I'm programmed. But it's, to your point, it's not sustainable for team members for long periods of time. It's certainly, we all build software. You hit critical deadlines. You may have to, have a couple months of hell because stuff went wrong. But to try to maintain that over the long term, that's I don't see how companies can make that work.
It's hard to imagine. I'm like you, like I've done this for a while and I do it because that's the way I'm wired. A long time ago, I stopped trying to have a work life balance. Not because, meaning for me, balance means on one side I got this, the other side I got this, and they're balanced out. I don't do that anymore. They're mixed together. Like if I need to do something in the middle of the day that's personal, like go to my kid's thing, I go to my kid's thing in the middle of the day and I just do that and the schedule works around it. If I have to take a call with an important client on Saturday night, I take a call with an important client on Saturday night. But I make sure there's time for me, there's time for my family, and there's time for work. And you just have to manage that. It doesn't seem sustainable to do it for a decade to me. And like, okay, and I think I usually get people to agree with that. I say, okay, it's sustainable for a day. I could work all day. So it's between a day and 10 years. Where's that line? Where is that line? And then we can argue about that. Is it 5 years? I think it's probably 5 months, but let's talk, right? Before you burn yourself out.
Well, to that point, in my book, I talk about, what is the true definition of success? Does that mean you have a ton of money? Because I know a lot of guys who have 10 times the net worth I do, but they're divorced 2, 3, 4 times. Their kids hate them. And is that the definition of success? To your point, having them intertwined when you are an entrepreneur, a CEO, a leader is important. And it was like, I would always bring my family along with the ride. Hey, I could go on vacation whenever we want, but dad might have to sit in the hotel room until 1 and do calls, and then I'll come meet you. And, getting their buy-in, getting it forward. Because to me, the definition of success is having it all, not just money.
I know. I have the story. I still remember it was my first real startup. Like I had a consulting gig I ran for like a year and a half with people. And then my first real startup, and I had a hard technical problem and I couldn't solve it. And I knew the guy who knew how to solve it. And it was my friend Jeff, and he had retired sort of. And he was actually one of those like, anyway, I called him and out of the blue and I said, Jeff, I have this problem and it's urgent for me. Can you help me? Can you walk me through how I should solve it? He's like, I absolutely can, but I'm about to get on the ski lift. You have until the ski lift gets to the top. And I'm like,
Nice.
I'm ready. Like I understand the constraint. He solved it before we got to the top. And I'm like, great, thanks. See you when you're back in the city. And he's like, yep, I probably won't be back for another year, but yeah, I'll see you. Okay, buddy.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you for getting uncensored with us today. Your stories of your career, of the innovation you've led, on how you go about things, just awesome. And I'm excited to see what you and the Treasury Prime team continue to do to change and evolve and modernize the banking industry. Before we wrap, what's your no BS advice for tech leaders today who are trying to build, scale, or even just survive in what I'll call these interesting times?
Sure. My normal advice is people matter more than anything else. Like You got to choose the right problem. You got to choose the right people. If you can do that, you'll win. So just do not skimp, do not waste time, do not compromise on the people. They have to be great. You mean pretty good? I don't. I mean great. And that means most people you meet, you won't be able to work with. That's okay. You can have beer with them. Don't work with them. That's my advice. Every time I've compromised on that, every single time I've been sad about it. Usually months or a year later, but I've always been sad about it. Don't compromise.
And to that, and awesome advice. And to that point, I've hardly ever seen when family or friends work together.
Yeah.
It's one thing if you're working together, you become partners and you become friends. But when they're your friends or your family and then you hire them on, I've actually never seen an entrepreneurial situation where that's worked.
Same.
Yeah.
I know one married couple that they've been entrepreneurs together for years. And I'm always like, how does that even work?
Like, what the hell do you talk about at night?
Apparently just work. I mean, I've been to their house for dinner. All I do is talk about work. And there's that exception. Okay, great. There's 1 in a million.
Yes.
You're probably not that guy. So don't do that.
Chris, this was fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. If you enjoyed the show, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, well, we'll just send it to your competitors, probably the edge they're looking for. Remember to fail hard, win big, and always build what matters. See you next time. That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatify Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.